My apologies for ending the last live stream. My Discord blew up. Hey, did Carter have a bowel movement? Why would it end abruptly? I would say I get called during live streams all the time, and I normally just call the person back. This was one where if I revealed who it was, you'd be like, okay, yeah, you definitely have to take that call. So for the entirety of the 20 minutes that I abruptly ended the earlier stream, I was talking to this individual about what went wrong at LSU. This person is in the know. All right, he is pretty big when it comes to this because I wouldn't have done that, right? I lose YouTube ad revenue for ending a stream and then restarting it. It confuses the algorithm and all that stuff. And I did not expect that call. And that's part of the reason why I don't go live on Mondays is because I am talking uh, to quite a few people on Mondays. Normally I'm talking to a player. I talk to a lot of players' parents that I've shared in the past. Uh, but I this call was not scheduled, and he didn't know I was live because he's actually a very busy individual. But I will share some of the things I discussed because I owe it to you because you guys are the single most important thing, and if this person had called you, would want to you would have wanted me to take it, and you would have probably taken it. Um, there is a lot of frustration with how these last couple of weeks went down. And I do think some of the stuff that I have echoed in film studies that's not brought up in live streams too much is frustrating to deal with if you're actually in the building. Okay. What this person expressed to me was Joe Sloan's overall stubbornness as far as play calling is concerned. And also, there is growing frustration with the individual position coaches that some of these players are playing under. I truly do believe that to be true. I've heard that from other people, and this person would definitely know. And I am I am very frustrated with Garrett. I'll put it that way because look, is Garrett in a position where the offensive tackle play is so horrendously bad that you can sympathize with Garrett? I think a lot of NFL evaluators will be very sympathetic to Garrett's overall um, situation, if you will. But it is frustrating for a lot of people when you turn on other SEC games and you see other quarterbacks extending plays, using their legs, fighting as hard as they possibly can to pick up yards, not taking bad sacks. And here's the thing that I feel is important, that if you look at a stat like sack avoidance, Garrett Nussmeier's sack avoidance was so unfreaking believably high last year. He was really good at not taking sacks. This year, he has taken a lot of sacks. Now, I will say, I would probably put a good 60 to 70% of them as sacks that are unavoidable for your normal quarterback's athleticism. The problem is there are so many quarterbacks in college football now that are so elite at avoiding sacks when it comes to actually running out of a sack that if you don't have a quarterback that can get out of those occasionally, you lose so much hidden yardage when it comes to the sack battle. And it's frustrating. It is very, very, very frustrating. So there you go. Now, we side of J Smacks, we side of Ryan. We are back. We are back. Good to see all of you. Okay. So there you go. Now, I want to talk some about this Texas A&M offensive film, and I want to talk about some of the players that's on this tape right now. Let's go to the very first play of the game, and we're trying to run a little run here to the. Uh, we're running a little delayed screen here to Bauer Sharp, and I just cannot stress enough how poorly the Bauer Sharp experiment has worked. Okay, this is a play that's pretty good. You run a little tight end delay, three is just sitting there waiting on it. And, it goes for basically nothing. I do like the play design, it gets sniffed out. There's a good piece of me that thinks uh, it's easy to pick up on Joe Sloan's signals. Obviously, you wouldn't be able to pick up on that in the very first play of the game. But then we get to here, and you get to the big Harlem Berry run. I want to give you the end zone copy of this. And obviously, you would like to think that Harlem Berry and Carius Kern are going to be a big piece of what we do in the future. Could you imagine Harlem Berry in a Lane Kiffin system? It would be pretty fun. This is a really good job right here by Trades Green, who's not been a good blocker, to really put his body on the line. Cohen Eccles, who's been a relatively good run blocker himself, gets a lot of push there. And then this is as good of a run block to play as we've had all season. It's a good job by Harlem getting out of Trades' way as well. Is that holding right there? They call that quite a bit, but it's really not if the hand is inside the chest plate. You would like to see Carius Kern let go there, though. You've got to be able to feel out that Barry's already past you. So, just disengage right there and just move on to the next play. Okay? All right, you guys know I'm a slow-mo guy. I might not do slow-mo breakdowns here because I want to get to as many plays as we possibly can. This was supposed to be a little screen right here where we fake it to Bauer Sharp and then throw it to Jawan in the middle right there. It gets snuffed out. Okay. And Garrett, God bless, this just needs to be thrown into the ground. This play is dead. Okay. That's just a really, really, really bad decision right there by Garrett Nussmeyer. Okay. We'll keep it moving. We get to the play where Carius Kern gets beat badly off the edge. This really isn't, anything Garrett could get away from. You would like to think. Can he step up here? Maybe so. 9 is redirecting pretty quickly on that. And you'll see from the end zone copy here that we're running a flood variation to the right side. The low portion of this route is Harlem Berry into the flat. We want to throw this into the flat. If that flat defender who's around the 50 on that right hash, if he backs into where Trades Green is running, we want Garrett to throw it to Harlem Berry in the flat. One thing Garrett's been really slow on this year is getting to the shallow drag, but this is just this rush just happened so quick that there's not a whole lot Garrett can do. This does look like Garrett could have stepped up into this pocket, but it's really hard when a guy's getting beat that badly. But it's a true freshman left tackle, and then we blow a timeout here on 3rd and 19. Okay, we shouldn't, especially in 3rd and 19, we just need honestly to take the 5-yard penalty or just run the play. Looks like we have the formation out there that we need. We have 3 receivers out there. You never want to blow a timeout on 3rd and 19. Just hardly ever, unless it is the end of the game and we're really trying to go out there and win it. And even then, you probably should not blow this timeout with that much time left on the play clock. The one thing about the Brian Kelly era is there's just so many of these timeouts that he's taken that just makes absolutely no sense. Okay. We'll move forward here in this copy. Won't do any defensive reps because we've already broken down the defensive film. I would need the all 22 for that. I do have it here. Okay. And then on this 3rd and 19, was there somewhere Garrett could have placed his football? No, not really. Let's get to a super. Carter, did you get a call from my boy Hank Stilson? He's always calling me about being a sauce. Guy's crazy, crazy. What's up, Ultra Raider? Okay. I want this to be clear before I break down any plays. If you're just joining us, we were doing a live and we're going to do basically what you're seeing now. I stopped the live to take this call. There's not many calls that I would stop a live for to take. It would be near impossible for me to call this person back in this person's life. This person is way above me. All right. I am low on the totem pole, both in relevance in LSU media and in terms of financial reasons. This person's a busy person. Um, and so I talked to him for 20 minutes and then I immediately went live again. But this is normal during coaching searches, right? It's a lot of stuff, and I normally get a lot of calls on Mondays anyway. That's why I don't like going live on Mondays. I just do a pre-recorded film study. Okay. But I want it to be also known that I am not important enough to be getting a call from Scott Woodward. It's not someone like that. And it's not a booster. It's someone with LSU. Okay. But yes, I am not important enough. And there's not many people important enough for me to end a live with. Okay. And personally, I've not talked to this person in a very long time, very long time. Okay, so let's move ahead to our next offensive possession. All right, we're down 7. Okay, we'll talk about kickoff return. We've really lost the special teams battle, and much has been made about the Grambling special teams coach Anon, um, and we just haven't really been good. One guy that has really struggled on special teams is Javian Toviano, 25. You could see here on this kickoff return, he just completely whiffs his block. And the thing that's kind of concerning if you're looking at this from the LSU vantage point, do you really think Barryon Brown forgot how to return kicks? We had 3 return TDs last year. Um, Barryon Brown is arguably the best kickoff returner in the history of the Southeastern Conference. Okay. Look, all our guys are getting blown up on this play. 46, Tylen Singleton, friend of the channel. He gets blown right back into the play, and 10 is right there to fill that gaps. Look, there's nowhere. The fact that Barryon was able to bounce this and actually turn this into something shows you how good of look how good of a kickoff returner this guy actually is. He actually turned this into something. Okay. And A&M's got a really, really, really good kickoff return guy. Okay. We get to hear Harlem Berry run to the right side. Man, Harlem was good in this game. This wasn't even the most well-blocked play, and he just kind of turns this into something. Man, he's really good. He is really, really, really good. It is hard as a true freshman back to be basically tiny for SEC running back standards. God, he's good, man. This is just some insane running. This is some insane running right up the gut here. Look at that double we're getting with Cohen Eccles and Braylon Moore. That is really good run blocking. Now, Torian York did send Braylon Moore to the underworld there, but that's the best linebacker in the SEC by a wide margin, and Harlem Berry just throws him off of him, and he picks up a first down. And a wide margin is hyperbole. I mean, Witt, when he's healthy, is up there, but we're talking about right now. Typical Garrett comeback route to the outside. We're not going to show you that. So let's get to this 1st and 10. This is honestly a pretty good play design. We're in 12 personnel, and we're running one of these kinds of screens where it looks like you could be blocking, and then you release. Garrett smartly works the check down here. Once again, if you were comparing the quarterbacks here, a lot of QBs, even the running QBs, are taking this into the flat, right? They're throwing this into the flat. But you can also see that Marcel Reed, in this instance, would be someone taking this rush lane and really getting sexy with it through that left side rush lane. And so we just throw this into the flats, and there you go. And by the way, if you guys don't want to do Texas A&M film study, I am perfectly fine to get to another topic. But I know some of you like the Monday stream, and once again, Torian York is just a beast. He's able to tackle Jawan in the flats. Let's go to Bruce. Nuss was never good. I will tell you that, and this was based on a conversation that I had last week, so it wasn't the convo that I just had. There are quite a few that are very frustrated with Garrett this season and how poorly he's underperformed. And some of that is some of the coaches, some of that is some of the players. They're frustrated with Garrett. I do think one thing about Garrett is the limping after the injuries and him still playing kind of wore thin. I will say that. And is it true that on some of these hits that Garrett is hurt? Yeah, but I do think, especially if you played football, that it did seem a little Hollywoody. Okay. So we're running Hoss Juke. This is, one of our most common plays. Every time on Hoss Juke, I understand you want to work this quick comeback route. I just prefer to work Aaron over the middle. This is part of Garrett not trusting his own line, because if you work Aaron over the middle, it takes a little bit longer. But when you see off coverage, you can alert it and actually throw the comeback route to Trades, and that's not a bad option. Okay. Let's go to legendary CEO. If we don't get a big name coach, everyone will go who isn't contractually obligated to. Well, yeah, I mean, the opposite is also true. Okay. The opposite is also true. I don't think, for me, and I think you're talking about the players in particular, almost every NIL contract is pretty much renegotiated on the year. Okay. Where every year there is a new year to renegotiate where you want to go and who you want to who you want to play with, basically. NIL contracts aren't my expertise. I can also a gazillion % confirm that there were quite a few players on this team who took less to be on this team. And that's why it's frustrating. Okay. It is really frustrating, legendary CEO, to your generous super chat here. I know of 2 different players that have transferred in over the past 2 seasons, one this year and one the year before, where they took down bigger paydays to be a part of what we had going on here. So the thing is, yes, when you hear of these other programs and coaches and all of that, and media heads that bring up, hey, LSU is not what it once was. It's not. And it's not the must-have job that it used to be in the NIL era. Some of that is probably true. But at the same time, because of the brand and because LSU is LSU, I still think there's going to be players that want to come play for LSU because they are LSU. Because Patrick Peterson played here and Tyrann Mathieu played here, and it is an NFL factory. I will always acknowledge in the modern day that it's not as important as it once was, but I still think it is important. Let's go to Bruce. He says it's a top 5 job. Oh, you let your son type. I wonder why you sent this super chat and he said, hi, okay, bye. Huh? Let's go to Sibley. He says Frank has a delicate situation. He wants to preserve Van Buren's red shirt, but he also could get on the portal or continue to play Nuss. Why would you try to preserve a red shirt if the portal is a possibility? Yeah, it's a good question. I know it's being discussed, now that the season is essentially over. We will not make the college football playoff. We could, if we were to win out, LSU at 9-3 with 2 road victories versus Alabama and Oklahoma, especially if Oklahoma wins all their other games, which is probably not likely. Their schedule is the hardest in the SEC over the past couple of weeks here. But yeah, I think Oklahoma, if you beat Alabama, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Western Kentucky, you could backdoor your way in there. But you're not going to. And even if you do, you're probably still not going to make it. For me, as far as the Van Buren redshirt thing is concerned, I am open to MVB playing and starting the last 2 games of the season. Because if you do that, he can preserve his redshirt eligibility. I'm also open to Colin Hurley getting some snaps. But I can tell you that some of the Garrett Nussmeier antics wore thin. All right? It wore thin. And the problem for me is that, I don't say this because, my analysis is important. In the grand scheme of things, anything I say is not important. I just care about LSU winning games. But I defended so much of Garrett's shortcomings last year, when in actuality, I should have given more credit to Will and to Mason in particular. And then also, of course, Kyron. But Will dominating a left side of the offensive line just made life so much easier on everybody. And obviously, Emory, who had a bit of a down season, it is what it is. Okay. Now, coming up next, we do need to get to one final spot here from our friends at Labor Therapy and labortherapy.com. I do want to get back to some of the Texas A&M footage and what we can learn before we get to Alabama week, because I still want to beat those guys.
Are you missing that sweet swing? If pain is holding your golf game back, you must check out the full simulator at the Lafayette location of Labor Therapy Center. Yes, Chase and his team built this simulator to go along with a full set of programs catered to your needs. Yes, this entire team at Labor Therapy worked hard to fix that back, your elbow, shoulders, wrists, knees, toes, it doesn't matter. At their Lafayette location, 337-981-4053. Call today. But what if you don't golf? And what if you don't live in Lafayette? No problem. They fix anything therapy related. Book today, labortherapy.com, with locations in Carencro, Youngsville, Morgan City, and Crowley. Labortherapy.com. LABORDE therapy.com. Let's go.
PHL Nation, it's time to lock in and get serious really quickly with our friends at Fortified Gulf Coast and FortifiedGulf.com. This is my buddy Ramey. He is one of many Fortified Gulf Coast inspection professionals that are doing something to help you not only save your home, but your memories.
The Fortified program got started about 13 years ago. We adopted it here in New Orleans about 2.5 years ago. It's a more advanced way of doing the roof. It adds an extra layer of protection, whereas even if a hurricane was to pull the shingles off this roof, water will still not get into the house.
So yes, your establishment is important, but what about the things you can't replace? That family scrapbook or that painting that's been handed down from Meemaw to Papaw and to you. It is important to protect that today with Fortified Roofing. And while this seems like a priceless asset, did you know it can actually save you on your homeowner's insurance up to 37% if you are in South Louisiana? Just call the number 504-444-7563. That's 504-444-7563, or visit FortifiedGulf.com. That's FortifiedGulf.com. Let's go. All right, we are back. I want to go through a few other plays here. Garrett Nussmeier, go ball to Barry on. Obviously, we completed one of these later. Man, dude, these Bauer Sharp reps just get worse and worse. This is not the worst. It's good enough. You know, when it comes to tight end blocking, you just want good enough. Lucky enough, Harlan was there to save the day. And Garrett throws an absolute beautiful ball right here to Barry on, and he gives him a chance to make a play, and he's interfered with. Okay, good stuff. Okay. Then this is good stuff. This is a play that we ran a few weeks ago. Fake pitch into the boundary, and then we're throwing it to Tradez. Good stuff. We ran this versus South Carolina. Boom. Okay. It's really, really difficult to stop. There you go. And then eventually, of course, we score with the Tradez jump ball. And this is just insane stuff, man. There's a guy over here. I made a joke about the Megatron comments. But man, dude, this is just filthy stuff. Filthy. Okay. A lot of you have seen a gazillion replays of this. Part of the problem, you know, since this is such a quick hitting play, you don't pay attention to the offensive line. You just wish that there was, actually, I'll save this conversation for a different day. But you look at the left side of the line. I won't say who, but there's one of these Texas A&M defensive linemen, one of their family members is a close family friend of mine. They just whooped our asses. You know, both our left side offensive linemen got beat pretty badly. Kern and Eccles. Kern, it's a little bit more forgivable because he's a true freshman. But there you go. Okay. What's up, Dex? What's going on? So type Y for yes, type in for no if you want to continue the offensive film study. I do not mind. I do not mind. Okay, we get to this run right here. This is basically the run we ran earlier. This looks bad on Tradez Green. He's never making this block. There's a lot of people not making this block ever. Okay. And then we get to here, Garrett, quick slant to Aaron. Obviously, we should throw this every single game. And Aaron obviously torched Texas A&M last year. Good throw, good catch. We know he can complete that. Okay. Jess wants to talk Kelvin Shepard. You know, I brought this up. I talked to you on the phone earlier today. one of our biggest supporters, Mr. Van Lathan. And, he does college football media stuff now too. And the name that gets brought up the most is Kelvin Shepard. And it should be discussed. It should be. This is look at this piece of blocking right here by Trades Green. So we split zone him to the right side. 18 elects to wrong arm it, all right, which is go to the inside of Trades Green. If he's going to do that, we just need to wash him down. That's a good second level block right there by Weston. And that's a good cut right there by Harlem. And now we just want to get as vertical as we can. This was not good by Thompson on the backside. And that's one of the easier blocks on this play. And this should have been more yardage. You give 11 a lot of credit, cross and face, and make it a play. But yeah, it's a good gain right there on first. Okay, and then this is the shit that bothers me so much. And I know I don't curse during the during the weekday live stream, so my apologies. Game live streams can get crazy. So I don't know why Weston in this spot right here would be in a 3-point stance instead of a pass set. That makes no sense. Okay, so the way this normally works when it comes to offensive line alignment, you could see here that the left tackle for LSU is in a pass set, which of course is Carius Kern. But the right tackle has his hand in the dirt in a run set. Also, we want our offensive tackle to be a little bit further back than the guard, but you see he's even. So, yes, Weston Davis is getting beat by a guy who's going to get drafted, but he's also not doing himself any favors as he gets beat pretty easily off the corner. It shortens that corner, if you will. Okay. And there you go. Hal just turns the corner, and Garrett just has no shot. He has no shot here. Sure. Could he step up and just go and run as hard as he can up the middle? Yes, you can do that. Right here, A&M, it looks like they're playing a variation of two-man under, where it's man coverage and it's a two-high safety build behind it. If you sprint as hard as you can, are you getting through there and picking up yards? Maybe so. Probably not, though. And Garrett corncobs and takes another bad sack. Once again, Weston gets beat bad. I have no idea why he would be coached to be in a 3-point stance there. That makes no sense, because another thing about being in a 3-point stance is that there's no running back there. So you're never running in the spot. It's weird. It's very weird. Okay. Let's see if anything was open on the backside. Okay. If Garrett can get through there, he's probably getting caught by that twister. It's a mess. So 3rd and 12. Okay. This is incomplete. Let me see. I would need the all 22. I got to pull it up here. There is nothing open on this 3rd and 12. Oh, boy. There's absolutely nothing. It's also very unimaginative play calling. I'll pull up the all 22 really quickly here. Let's go to Jordan Simpson. Welcome to the channel, Jordan. I don't know if y'all talk coaches, I'm sure, but I think we should give the house for Lane. He's got to be the best coach for a style I believe we want. With a good DC, I think we'll be making history. So, okay. Lane is the thumbnail image. That would be the move that I would make. I am open to actually giving him that, but I also don't own the pocketbooks. Is there someone out there that would be willing to foot that bill? And that's the thing. If there is, let's do it. Okay. So there's been some channels getting nuked for all 22, so I'm going to be careful here. But this is the 3rd and 12 play call. And so many times in the Sloan era, 3rd and longs and 3rd and 7s and 3rd and 8s, and it really wasn't like this last year. It kind of sort of was. It just wasn't as bad. So much of it is just verticals, right? See, look, it's just a vertical stop, vertical stop, vertical stop. That's just always going to be defended. Look, I mean, where is Garrett supposed to go with this? There's nothing open. Look at that. I mean, I've never seen a play more covered than this one. So you have to play comeback route football, and, well, it's incomplete. So there you go. All my all 22s up on the Patreon as well. Patreon.com/LSU football. Not the best time coming off a loss? No, it is the best time. If you want Kenny Dillingham to be the coach, you want him to be in that spot where he's not on the upswing. You don't want to pay him after Arizona State makes another playoff. I'm very open to paying Kenny Dillingham to come here. I think he would do really, really, really good things. It's also weird, and it could just be a sign of my age, that I'm advocating for a coach who is my age, actually slightly younger than me, to be the next guy. That is so great. Okay, we get the safety. Broke down the safety already. Okay. So first down. Actually, I want to break this down really quickly now that I've come to my senses here. Sexton is the Antichrist. Let's not say that, Jess. What if Jimmy's watching this and Lane's getting ready to make the move and Jimmy's like, nope, not going to happen. Okay. So kickoff return. We return this football at the 15-yard line, down by 5. Okay. And it's Berryon returning it. Now, one downside about this return is that he's catching this instead of running underneath it. So he's not running with as much forward momentum. But I want you to see again who actually screws up this kickoff return. It's Barry Sharp. Okay, so watch what happens here. This is crazy to me. Absolutely, positively crazy. He cuts off Berryon Brown. Boom. Look at him. He's right in front of Berryon Brown, getting ready to have a full head of steam. And you could see that there is a tiny gap. Once again, Tylen Singleton got knocked way back on this kickoff return. But there is a tiny gap right there behind CJ Jim Coyley's rear end right there. Pause. And Berryon has to stop. And we gained nothing. We gained the minimum on this kickoff return after a safety. Barry Sharp is a massive problem. One of those things as well where OU fans were right. And I watched a lot of Barry Sharp. I thought it was just going to be bad as a blocker, but it's just been atrocious. This is a good call right here. Good run. Now, in this spot, do you want Paul Mabinga to work up to the safety? I'm fine with him not, and we're just going to trust Harlan make the safety miss. And he can't do it. And then even though Mabinga right here stayed with the block on 17, he couldn't hold on to it. So this is just really poor left guard play. God bless America. This should have been a big gain. We just don't have the dudes to execute it. Okay. This was my lowest graded Nuss play. This is also another Bauer Sharp play right here. This should have been the biggest gain of this game. And to me, this is the biggest miss. This is a really good play call by Joe Sloan. So we had been showing in 12 personnel, once again, having two tight ends right here helps us in this spot, right? Because you could see that the play side B gap is unaccounted for. All right. So the way you could tell that is the B gap is the gap between, actually, it's a gap between, excuse me, it's a C gap. The A gap is the gap between the center and guard. B gap is between the guard and tackle. And the C gap is the gap between the tight end and the guard. So by being in 12 personnel, which is two tight ends, which is number 14, Trey Green and Bauer Sharp, the tight end here, if you're in 12, it gives you an extra hat in the run fit than one traditional tight end. So what do? Well, we crunch this formation in tight. They have an open C gap that they have to account for. And what do? We play action here with Caden Durham. The defense knows that this C gap needs to be accounted for. So if we actually hand this off, you see that there is a gap right there. And what do? We fake it, and then we run Trey Green through that gap. And he's wide open in the flats. So what happens? Well, Garrett hitches. This ball needs to be out right now. Okay? It needs to be delivered to Trey Green while he's running full speed. All right? This is a one read play. We are throwing this to the tight end almost every time. What does Garrett do? He pauses. Okay? Boom. Should be out. Should be out. Okay, so he finally gets it out. It does not help that Bauer Sharp is getting pushed back right into his lap. And it gets deflected. Okay, look at this. Look at all of that beautiful space. Is Trey Green even getting tackled here? He's getting to at least the 50-yard line. At least. And then this pissed me off. This play pissed me off. So there, I reached out to Max Toscano, who's a friend of the channel, knows ball more than me, and he's done film studies with us. And man, dude, I just disagree with him on this. Now, if he was here, he would share the pros and cons with some of the things that I brought up to him about this play. Okay, so the strength here, and I'll show it to you from the left side. We're trying to throw the football to the left, more than likely, okay, because we had three receivers to the left. And what we decide to do is we slide all of our protectors here to the right. And they're not really showing a blitz, but they do end up bringing everyone to the right side. So we were right that there was more blitzers coming from the right. But we send all of our protectors to the right, and we elect to be hot off the defensive end to the left. And I get that. I do get that. Because in theory, the guy to the left is the direction of where your hot actually is, which is your hot route, which is the number 2 receiver, Kyle Parker, who's not pictured. Okay, so I can understand that because you want to throw in the direction of the blitz where your hot is. Another thing you could do to help with this is have a tight end actually be there to block this end player, but we don't have good tight ends when it comes to actually blocking guys off the edge. We prefer to use our 11 personnel tight end as Trey Green in space. But in this spot, I would just prefer to have at least Caden Durham here to pick up the guy off the left. Now, we were right that they were bringing one extra guy from the right. We were right. But I don't know. I feel like this is over my head. Kind of like this throw by Garrett, who was really behind on his receivers. I also would like Garrett to just make this throw. Like, we don't need you to be leaning backwards. It's okay to take a hit every now and then. Or you could see his foot is in the direction of the sideline. You want that left foot to be more in the direction of the receiver. So, in theory, yes, it is sound to have a guy flying off the edge unblocked. It's sound. It makes sense, right? because you would prefer to be hot off that guy in the direction of where you're throwing. But I don't know. It could have been a blown assignment. He could have told Caden to go to the left. I'm also fine pre-snap here that Karius just picks up the B gap player, because I can't sit here and tell you in our Vanderbilt film study that the unblocked B gap pressure, which we gave up quite a bit, it's such a big problem. And then me tell you that Karius shouldn't pick up the unblocked or the blocked B gap guy. We got to account for the B gap. So in conclusion, I am fine with letting the in man go. I would prefer the in man be unblocked than the guy Karius ends up blocking. But I still think we could have set Caden to the left. It's tough. It's a good defensive call as well. But either way, Garrett throws it behind Kyle, and it's a mess. It's an absolute disaster. Bad quarterback play. And then, this was going back to what we were saying earlier. Garrett does take a minor hit. It's a tough hit. And then he gets stepped on here. Oh. So there you go. If y'all want to do more film study, let me know. I know it's tough. This is normally our Monday night film study time. So here's what we're going to do. In the next 5 to 10 minutes, I'm going to answer as many questions as we possibly can. If you super chat, we'll keep this party moving. Jacob says Kelvin Shepard with Austin Thomas as a GM. I will tell you that there is a growing amount of people at LSU that want Austin Thomas to make the next hire. Okay. The problem with that is, okay, it just depends on how the program wants to be run. Because we're talking about the NFL model. Austin Thomas was the first ever general manager ever when Ed Orgeron hired him a few years ago. The difference in GMs, though, in the NFL is that GMs are often the head coach's boss, whereas in college, it's vice versa. Now, in truth, I don't know if I want the general manager to hire someone that is going to, in essence, be his boss. But if we go towards an NFL model where the GM is actually the one who has the final say in personnel decisions, then I would be a little bit more open to the GM actually making the next head coaching hire. One interesting change that happened this year, though, was Austin Thomas was given a headset. Okay. If you are going to suggest Urban Meyer, you need to spell his name correctly. We do not eat Urban Meyers. Did I apologize to Notre Dame fans? No, I've done the opposite. I've acknowledged that they are correct. There's nothing for me to apologize about unless I called one specifically out by their name or something like that. But they were right. And look, I am always open to anyone being critical of anybody. Aaron says, be ready for Frank Wilson to run the show. I'll tell you this. There's not many true Louisiana recruiting icons out there that match what Frank Wilson has done. And there's a lot of people that do want Frank. If they had to choose, they wouldn't want Frank to be the next guy. They would. DWC says, can we replace Kelly with better? I am worried, guys. Yeah. Now, unfortunately, it's the same thing with what I said at the end of the Orgeron tenure, which is anything is better than Ed Orgeron. And we all thought Lane Kiffin, or excuse me, Brian Kelly was better than Ed Orgeron, and he wasn't. Let's go to Sourdough Man. He wants to get hypothetical. I love it. Think about this. Bryce Underwood signs with LSU. Bad defensive record. Kelly fired, and Bryce transfers to Michigan. LSU would be at 500 or under. I've thought about this quite a bit. What if Bryce Underwood did come to LSU? Well, you're probably not getting Mansour Delane. You're probably not getting A.J. Halsey. So imagine how bad our defense would be if we did not have the transfers defensively. So this would be a good question for you to answer. What if we take the defensive transfers completely out of the equation? How bad would LSU's defense be? I don't know, because we played a lot of bad offenses early in the season. The counter to that, as far as Brian Kelly is concerned, what if Bryce Underwood, I would say with Garrett struggling the way that he struggled, there would have been too much steam for Bryce Underwood to play. He would have already seen the field with what he would have been making to be here at LSU. Then the other thing about the Bryce Underwood situation is, and this is uncomfortable to talk about, and we've touched on it in recent lives, is that Garrett himself is not taking everything the most serious. And I didn't say that smoothly at all. He could have taken everything more seriously. There is no doubt in my mind if Bryce Underwood would have stepped on campus, his presence alone would have kicked Garrett into high gear. Instead, you get Van Buren, Garrett got casual, and we are where we are right now. Okay? He said, interesting, wasn't sure if Brian Kelly would play a freshman quarterback. Well, this isn't any freshman quarterback. This is a freshman quarterback who would have been making $1.2 million a year at LSU. Minimum. And his whole family, rerouting their lives to come live in Baton Rouge. So there you go. I agree, Sibley. I do not want the governor making the next hire. Hiring the next president? Okay, it's a little bit different. Do I think Kiffin's scheme offensively could work here? Yes. Because it already has worked in the SEC. Except now, like when you really think about this Ole Miss offense, the quarterback's not as good as Jackson Dart. The wide receivers aren't as good as Trey Harris was. They lost Prescorn, but their tight end now is better, 8. They're still a ridiculously talented offense. Their running back is certainly better than Kwan Lacey, but the current version of Kwan Lacey, but you know. One thing I think that I feel great about is that I am glad Jaden Daniels is not playing football, because I don't ever want to be live on here while Jaden Daniels is playing football, but he's hurt, and there's Monday Night Football going on right now. But I miss him. Oh boy, I miss him. I was looking at some old Alabama LSU All 22, and I could not believe how freaking good Jaden Daniels was at that game. Matthew Langlois, New Roads native, we're big fans of his. He says, I was forced to medically retire before I could get a second or third opinion. When I was playing very well before my injury, I'd hear from Coach Kelly quite often. The second I got injured, not a word since. Genuinely one of the worst humans I've ever been around, ever. We saw what Malik Neighbors said. We saw what Braden Swinson said. We saw what Charles Turner said a few years ago, which was wild to me. And this was a few years ago. Aaron says, I don't think having Kiffin's aggressive play calling and Blake Baker's aggressive play calling. I will tell you this. Even though I have personally been very critical of Blake Baker, that has not been echoed by my sources that are actually out there coaching and playing. That's not, they disagree with me. They're saying it's not Blake. And I will say, though, one thing that cannot be denied is that the linebacker evaluation has been really rough. It's been really rough. And I'm not just saying it's been rough under Blake Baker. It's been bad all around, from Matt House to where we are now. Okay. I do NFL stuff. I don't do as much NFL stuff as I do college stuff, but I have an NFL channel, Power Hour NFL. Martrell Spates is still playing for the Rams. Why was he so bad in his lone year with LSU? Some of it was his hip issues, but he sucked. He sucked. He was all Pac-12. He sucked while he was here. For some reason, we cannot get linebacker right. We can't. We did not intend on Micah Baskerville being what he was for us. But he was. We cannot pick out the right linebackers. It is not good that last season Xavier Debo Atkins was playing a lot once, things got a little shaky in the second level. And then, we went to Devon Keys, who's fine. He's fine. He's not terrible. But Devon Keys, the best version of Devon Keys, is probably not going to ever be the SEC player of the week defensively like Debo Atkins was this past year. It's just the truth. Now, I don't know Devon Keys. I know Debo. So I want that to be clear. He's been on the channel before, Debo Atkins. I've not talked to him really at all since he's been at Auburn. But damn it, he's good. I mean, he is so good. We had a really high grade on him before the interview per our Patreon. And go to Patreon and see our grades. Whew. Oh, did I say Martrell Spates? The NBA player? Omar Spates, excuse me. Yeah, for you. I wasn't talking about Devin White. That was 2018. His last season at LSU. I'm talking about the Brian Kelly era, which started 4 years after that. Thoughts on Aaron? Yeah, he's still been good for us. I mean, let's go to Coogan. Do you think Lane has learned from the mistakes he's made, all the unnecessary fourth down attempts? Yes, fourth down attempts aren't as reckless, and the wandering eye for other jobs. Yeah, that's always going to be there. A lot of these offensive whiz kids have wandering eyes for other jobs. But look, a lot of offensive geniuses have their shortcomings. Okay? A lot of offensive geniuses have some type of baggage or crazy off-field situation. I think of offensive geniuses in many ways like stand-ups, right? Stand-up comedy, which I sucked at for 5 years. But stand-up in many ways is storytelling, not just in the jokes where you tell a story. It's also the story you're trying to sell to the audience. Half of what you are as a stand-up is having people believe in your persona or getting immersed in your persona, right? Offensive coordinatorship is kind of the same thing, right? It's making your players believe in your narrative and the story and what your offense's identity is going to be, and make the defense believe that you could be doing one thing, but you're doing the other. It's misdirection, not just in terms of a misdirection play like a reverse or a counter or something like that. Misdirection in, hey, we're showing you one inside zone run and we run it, and then the next time we split zone the tight end and throw it to him in the flats, which was, our money play under Jaden Daniels, and play has just not been there for us. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of similarities I've always found with the good offensive play callers and stand-ups, right? Lane is as funny as some of the other stand-ups. But, yeah, I mean, it's a difficult thing to guess. Is this guy going to fall off a cliff mentally? I don't know. Head coach is the best recruiter like Saban. I could rotate coaches and concentrate on great players. Is there a coach in D2 who can coach like this? We hired Saban because of recruiting. Who is that coach today? Well, if you want to hire the absolute best recruiter, roster builder, speaker, mentality changer, you would pay whatever it would take to go get Dan Lanning, if that's what you wanted. You want boosters to write checks? Go hire Dan Lanning, if that's what you want to do. Let's go to Jordan. Offer Lane $15 million a year for 4 or 5 years, and after that, give him $2.5 million for every win, $3 million for every playoff, and $5 million bonus for winning the playoffs. Well, Jordan, I wish we had it like that, but we don't. And obviously, Lane would take $15 million a year. There's no coach in college football who wouldn't take that. Kirby is at least listening to that deal, and he's only making $13 million. And then Georgia would match it. Georgia would probably give Kirby $20 million a year, and he's probably worth it. But Lanning's not leaving. I think Lane could leave, but just based on, like, Lane just doesn't seem like an LSU coach. As much as I would like that to be the case, he's coached in Florida. Florida means a lot to him. It would be a homecoming of sorts because that's where his dad made his name in coaching. I think if he had to choose, he would pick the Gators over us. But I don't know. Coach O, AP wants Coach O. Okay, AP, is that what you're saying? You want Coach O? Well, let's go, dude. Why not? Tari, thanks for your existence, bro. Let's go to Graham Crane. G18 draft stock. I'm guessing you're saying Garrett Nussmeier's draft stock. Does he go undrafted? Okay. So every year, there's roughly 5 quarterbacks that get selected at the bare minimum in every draft, at the bare bones minimum. So many of these guys, like Ty Simpson, has another year. Does he decide to run it back? I think he does. Even if he's the number 1 overall pick, I do think he comes back. Because that would also mean you would have Ryan Williams for another year, even though Ryan Williams is mostly not been great for Alabama. And then you get into some of these other names. Does Sellers want to run it back? I think he has another year. But I do think he goes to the NFL. We'll see. Part of the problem and this is a big problem, is that did we really think LSU was going to have a big season in the first year without Dan Bornay? It wasn't happening. And by the way, Dan was always super nice to me. He's probably the nicest person to ever work anything LSU football. It's Dan Bornay. Dixon is a great PA announcer. I know Dixon personally as well. But Dan Bornay, man. God, what a icon. I know he was in the booth this past weekend. And that's what really pissed me off, us getting our asses kicked. This was kind of the Alabama game for us, right? The biggest home game of the season, A&M. It was that night. All our alums were back. Shaq was there. And we get mutilated, castrated, defenestrated, straighted. Let's go to Jared. He says, I prefer a defensive head coach that hires a great OC. Defense wins championships. So, a majority of the coaches I would give a name out that would piss a lot of people off because I'm higher on this guy than most. If you want a CEO type that understands social media, that has head coaching experience, that has also beat Clemson and Death Valley. Y'all know where I'm going to go with this. And I will get tarred and feathered for this. I'm not even going to say the name. It'll explode the chat. Lane head coach Nick Saban, Blake defensive coordinator. Shane Beamer is the guy. I appreciate you, Jace Max. Don't say what I told you in the chat, though. Well, I'll tell you more later. Shane Beamer, dude. If I don't know Shane, I don't. There's not anyone in SEC college football media that's higher on him than me. South Carolina fans hate him. Now, the problem with Shane is it going to be the same problem you have with BK, though, is that he cannot hire an offensive coach to save his life. But I can get down with some Beamer ball. All right. Tar and feather me, clip it, send it to anyone you want to. But SEC experience. So right now Shane is making $8.15 million a year. A few have mentioned Willie Fritz of Houston, $4.5 million is what he makes at Houston. Obviously, a lot of connections in the state of Louisiana. You know, we talked about John Summerall plenty of times. If y'all want to bring up a name in the chat, I've gone through quite a bit. I can go through some of the names that we went through yesterday. Eric Morris at North Texas is interesting. Young guy. Kenny at Texas State. Jared, thank you for the super chat. Appreciate you. Let's see. Trying to see if there's anything else. Hmm. Well, AP, I have never made a decision based on money, nor will I. Let's go to Ruby. No way you pay $54 million to replace BK with Shane Beamer. Scott Woodward would be fired. Yeah, I know, because you'd have to buy Beamer out. But what if he got fired? What if Beamer got fired? I do think there's a piece of me that Beamer takes a Virginia Tech job and follows in his father's footsteps. But I like Beamer a little bit more. I know dude, I know it's going to get my ass canceled. A lot of Frank Wilson love in the chat tonight. I get down with that. I can. All right, we'll take a few more here. Lane as a head coach, Nick Saban as a GM, Blake as a defensive coordinator. The thing is, would Nick want to lose all that goodwill that at Alabama, because he's already in an advisor's role with Alabama? I just doubt he takes a general manager's job, leaves College Game Day because of it. He's enjoying College Game Day. I'll take it. I'll take it. Now, we touched on this a little bit earlier. There would be too much positive momentum to say no to Frank Wilson as the next head coach if he won all 4 of these games. I do think, and this really isn't a knock on Joe Sloan, it really isn't, but even though Alex Atkins hasn't called plays in a long time, and we can get into how much influence he actually had at Florida State, one thing I can say is that there's going to be a massive sigh of relief with Atkins being in there instead of Sloan. There were some people that were rejoicing that Sloan lost his job today. As is the case with, not every coach at big D1 programs. There's always someone in the building that's glad to see you go. Hunter says, "Could Summerall compete?" I can't do the impersonations. I'm not. I don't know. I don't know who my favorite Trump impersonator is. There's a lot of different ones. I think Godfrey is actually the best. I put Godfrey one, and then I would put I would probably put Shane Gillis to. And then there's like a gazillion people that's their whole thing. But Godfrey is probably the best. Could summarize. Could summarize. I can't. I was never an impersonator. Now, if you had that man's money, I would only take your comments as super chats. Could Summerall compete in the SEC? Or do you have his money? I don't know. But there's people that do the tutorials on how to actually do it. It's I can't do it. That looks bad. I've never tried to do it. Like right now is the first time that I've tried to do it. But Godfrey's latest with Dr. Dre, ironically, is the hardest I have laughed. And then there was a comedian who did it. What's the comedian's name? He did it with Adam Ray at the Comedy Cellar recently. That was really, really, really good. And it wasn't Adam Ray. Adam Ray was doing Biden. And it was a black Donald Trump impersonator. Godfrey's black, by the way. It's funny that there's so many black comedians doing Trump impersonations better than some of the white comics. You would think it would be the opposite. It's funny. Hire Pete Carroll. Oof. But by the way, none of that was political. None of that was political. Urban Meyer would win a natty in 2 years. Come on, J Red. You know I'm not an urban guy. Not an urban guy. Mike Bobo as the next head coach. I'm also a big Bobo guy. I've gone head to head with so many Georgia fans in Mike Bobo's defense. He's good. Spider 2Y banana. It's funny that you bring that up, Big Mill, that Spider 2Y banana is actually one of the biggest plays of the year in the SEC for it failing, right? Tennessee ran Spider 2Y banana, and that's what the pick six was. The thing is, as high as I am on Lane Kiffin, once again, I've said I do think he would take the Florida job over LSU. I would not. I would just prefer to hire someone else way cheaper and just put the money towards the roster. I really would. I really would. And I'm serious. Seriously reconsider how much money you are paying your assistants. Okay? Seriously consider that. Deion Sanders in Baton Rouge. Hand on the Bible. Hand on the Bible. Okay? A member of the 2010 LSU team called me today. Or I called him. And he swore up and down. I was like, hey, give me a name. He's like, Deion. I was like, really? Deion? And this guy isn't as involved in football. He's retired, obviously, playing in 2010. But, the way players view Deion is different than how we view him. Let's go to Ruby. Matt Patricia. as head coach. Let him bring in his own DC. Hire a young gunslinging OC. Let's go to Sourdough Man. Member for 1 month. Let's go. Oh, baby. Let's go. I like it. Sure. I would happily fill in for their morning show as an interim until they find the next guy. Happily do it. Leonard Fournette says Corday Hankton as the running backs coach is going to shock us. Tell them to hit me up. I would do it for $20K a year, which would all go to my wife and my dog. Matthias, first off, welcome to the channel. As many of you know, it used to be LSU football was my favorite thing. It used to be. But now it's Shih Tzus. All right, I love my dog. I do. I love my sissy, my Z baby. But my teddy boy, I tweeted out a photo of my teddy boy. Teddy's my number one priority. Teddy boy, my good boy. My good boy. My teddy boy. If I were to get a head coaching job and get $1 million a year, I would go immediately buy 5 Shih Tzus. Y'all type Y for yes, type in for no if you want to see a photo of my good boy. I tweeted him out. That's my good boy right there, y'all. Look at my good boy. Look at that. He's got something in the pot back there. That's some gumbo. It's my good boy. Now look at him. He's just being a good boy. Just enjoying life, being a good boy. That's after a fresh cut, too. Just got a one guard all the way open, taper fade, wavelength. That's my good boy. Taper fade. All right, y'all. That's a good one to end on. We'll be back tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Central, and we shall have a guest tomorrow as well. Big thanks to all our super chatters. Ultra Raider, CEO, Sourdough Man, Sibley, Simpson. Thank you guys so much. And for the Venmos that have flew in, This one from J Red and Julie. Okay. And Branson Cat coming in hot. It is Power Hour LSU. Boom. Now on the Patreon. I will be sharing a few other things from my phone call earlier tonight. We're live stream tonight. And tonight we are doing quesadillas. Let's go. Let's go.